Every moment in life has the potential to be phenomenal. At Amy Boyle Photography, we specialize in capturing those moments, whether it's for your business, a milestone event, or a personal portrait. As the host of the Speaking of Phenomenal podcast, I know the power of storytelling, and I bring that same passion to my photography. Let's create images that celebrate who you are and what you stand for. Visit amyboylephotography.com to schedule your session today. Welcome to the Speaking of Phenomenal podcast. I'm your host, Amy Boyle. Today's guest is a national director for the OLLI Lifelong Learning Institute. She leads a national movement empowering adults aged 50 and older to keep learning, stay curious, and connect with purpose. We talk about finding joy at any age and why staying engaged isn't just good for the mind, it's good for the soul. This is the Speaking of Phenomenal podcast. Welcome to the Speaking of Phenomenal podcast, Kari.
Thanks for having me, Amy. It's going to be fun.
I would love it if you give an introduction to the phenomenal you.
Great. So in describing me, I would say that I am energized by creating passion in others. I've worked for global for-profits, small nonprofits, higher ed, and in every role, my focus has really been on helping people engage more fully in the world around them. And so in that, I value relationships. I value being fully present in life's moments and leading with kindness. I'm especially drawn to people's life stories, which I often find are phenomenal. And I feel lucky when I get to be even a small part of someone's journey. My strengths are in volunteer engagement and facilitation, project management, even culture change. And to add a little levity, maybe my strengths outside of work are giving long hugs, organizing closets, and planning extravagant scavenger hunts for my family.
With your dynamic career and everything and all your strengths, how did that journey materialize?
I spent most of my early career in a large for-profit company doing performance management, helping executives move the organization from business strategy to business results. And I got some great experience there, but I felt like I wasn't fulfilled and wanted to do something more meaningful. So in addition to starting a family and raising kids, I moved into a role at my synagogue. It was the largest synagogue in the area with 3,500 members, and I was the director of engagement. So I worked on helping people feel more meaningfully involved in synagogue life, everything from worship to social action, learning, and community. And my specialty was empty nesters and above. So at one point, my husband was transferred from Cincinnati, our home base, to Chicago, which is now where we live. And I wasn't quite ready to leave my job. I loved my role at the synagogue and was doing really meaningful work for a change and felt great about that. So we did the long distance thing for over a year. And then I finally said, all right, I love my husband. I want to be in the same city with him. And so I found this role within the Osher family, the OLLI program at Northwestern University. I became the director there. And it was all about creating community and helping people, not just in the learning capacity, but helping people find meaning in their lives and be connected and find community. And so it really matched my prior work at the synagogue and seemed like the perfect next step in providing a very fulfilling career.
And for those of our guests who aren't familiar with OLLI, I know we've had a side conversation, and to know one OLLI is to know one OLLI. There are many, but I would love it if you'd introduce the program, in particular the Northwestern program, but now we'll get into more of the national level as well.
Sure. So OLLI stands for the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. There are 124 OLLI programs across the country. They're represented in every state. There are about 339 sites because many OLLI programs have multiple locations. I started at the Northwestern program and then moved into the national program. So now I have the opportunity to work with all 124 programs across the country. And as you said, we'll talk more about that going forward, I'm sure. But it's really a great space for adults age 50 and above to come to a university setting, because each OLLI is associated with a college or a university. Adults age 50 and above come and learn on any topic you can imagine. The topics are really endless. Use your imagination. We've got probably a course that relates to that. The arts, history, current affairs, health and wellness, travel, crafts, hobbies, foreign language, you name it. And while there, they have opportunity not just to learn, but to be in community with one another, which is really what makes the program special.
I love that, one of the main missions and the through line is that curiosity doesn't retire. When you hear that phrase and now you see it come to life within your members, what does that look like in the day-to-day?
So oftentimes people retire with great enthusiasm, and then a couple months later, when all of their to-do lists are done, they think, what am I going to do next? And we have found members saying things like, OLLI is where I found my friends. OLLI keeps me young. It's an integral part of my life. It helped me navigate retirement. They'll say that it's where they connect with people on a meaningful level. What I find fascinating is that multiple members have actually said with great sincerity that OLLI saved their lives, because we know from prior Surgeon General that loneliness is an epidemic and it has this terrible list of side effects, and older adults are hit with loneliness more than any other demographic. And OLLI is a way that people can engage in meaningful ways and create real connection and not feel alone. And so the enthusiasm that comes from our members is really, really touching, really special. And we feel like we're doing very meaningful work because, as I said, people aren't just finding learning, they're finding belonging and meaning and friendship. And so you referenced a moment ago a phrase that we use often, which is to know one OLLI is to know just one OLLI, because they're all a bit unique. They vary in membership size, in the pricing structure, in their location. So we have OLLI programs in large cities like San Francisco and Chicago, Boston. We have them in smaller communities like Casper, Wyoming. So you're going to find an OLLI in every state. You mentioned online versus in person. If you are close to an OLLI location, you can certainly participate in person, and we love that because it does do more to create community. But most of our programs offer online experiences as well. So if you're not right within driving distance, or maybe you're going through something in which you need to be home. So for example, you could still be working full-time or part-time and you're still age 50 and above and you want to start engaging and finding this community, but you can get away for 2 hours in the middle of a Thursday afternoon and take a course. You can do that in person, or maybe online is a better way to do that. Maybe you're caring for someone in your home, or your own health is not as good as you would like. And so getting into a in-person class is difficult, but we still have online opportunities. So we try to be as flexible as possible in creating different ways to learn, different topics to learn, and different opportunities for that community that we talked about.
And Bernard Osher is the foundation that's the umbrella for the OLLIs. What is it like to work under a greater foundation, like other missions? How do they help each other?
Yeah, so Mr. Osher is a philanthropist, originally from Maine. He's 97 years old, and he is the epitome of lifelong learning. He taught himself how to play piano at age 80. I mean, he's just this incredible man. In fact, we just got back from a national conference in DC in which we had time to spend with him, and he's just phenomenal. And he felt very passionate about giving back. He had some very strong Jewish values growing up, in which giving back was an important part of his upbringing, and he also understood the importance of lifelong learning. So he helped seed these programs across the country. And because we're a part of this national network, we get the benefit of sharing ideas across different OLLI programs. And when one is really succeeding in a particular area, they can share that work with the other programs. We like to say that plagiarism isn't a thing for us. It's not a bad thing. It's praised, right? So stealing ideas from one another is good. It's also nice to be a part of this higher education system. So we have infrastructure and space and technology and resources to help us be successful because we're connected to the universities. And that was another really smart move from Mr. Osher. And it's really special to be a part of the Osher legacy, right? This is a billionaire's philanthropy and something that's important to him. And we feel really lucky to be a part of it, and lucky that it's mission-based work. I left the corporate world because I didn't find meaning. This is meaningful work that's having powerful impact on adults. We see more and more science that's showing the connection between our mental health, our social health, and physical health. And I don't know if you're familiar with the documentary Join or Die. If you haven't watched that yet, I strongly recommend it. But the political scientist by the name of Robert Putnam explores decades of data showing just how vital social connection is to our well-being. And he talks about how people who are actively engaged in community, who join something, live longer, are healthier, are far more resilient. And in fact, people who join groups like OLLI live on average 7 years longer than those who don't. 7 years. That's tremendous. So there's all this science pointing to strong connections between mental and physical health, between social engagement and overall health. And that's why I get really energized about what we're doing and think that the work is really vital, because we're not just running learning programs. We're creating those pathways for belonging and vitality. And especially now when I think the statistic is 1,200 people are turning age 65 every day. That's a lot of retirees looking for ways to create meaning in their lives, and we're thrilled to be a part of that.
And when it comes to getting involved, so obviously if people are looking for academia, which I think some people do, so how would you classify it between like coursework versus maybe more than a social club, right? Because you're learning, obviously that's the mission, but like I feel like the community that you're creating there, what's the tie-in to bring people on board, or is it primarily word of mouth, or how does that all come together?
Yeah, so publicity, every institute has a website, and people will often find us through Google searches, and I'll provide at the end the ways to do that. But I also firmly believe that our very best recommendations are through word of mouth, because people get involved in the community, and there's a phrase, they come for the learning, they stay for the friends. People come and they think, oh, I'm just going to learn some things. And then they go, wow, these are my people. This is really a special place to be. And so then they tell their friends who tell their friends. So word of mouth tends to be our best publicity. As far as like level of academia, again, to know one OLLI is to know one OLLI. Some are very academic focused in the types of courses that they offer. Some are less so, and everything in between. I'll give you some examples of the courses, but before I do, I will say that almost all of them, in addition to the actual courses, will have social events. We'll have shared interest groups. We'll have opportunities to connect with members outside the classroom in addition to inside the classroom. Inside the classroom, some of the courses that people will experience are history tends to be very popular. As long as we've been doing this, the top 3 areas that people are interested in are history, the arts, and current affairs. So we have a lot of things that fall into those categories, but don't be fooled by the term history. It's not just history of World War II. It's the history of rock and roll, the history of shipwrecks, the history of the 1960s, because that's history now too, as are the 80s and the 90s, the history of the post office. I just imagine any possible topic and we can get at how did we get here. The same for arts. It could be about, music, theater, visual arts, but also photography, or the power of lyrics through Bob Dylan. And how masterful he was at lyrics. We're finding that some of our younger members, those age 65 to 50, are interested in more health and wellness. So we've got a lot of activities in those areas on things like aging well and meditation and brain health and integrative health. Younger members are also interested in travel and foreign language, even some crafts and hobbies like mahjong and bridge and creativity as a skill. I mean, I could go on and on and on because there are just hundreds of courses offered every single term.
That brings up, so who is leading these courses? The idea of peer-driven and volunteer-empowered. So how does one become an instructor through OLLI, or how does that all come together as well?
Yeah. So also to know one OLLI is to know one OLLI. Some instructors come from the university. So faculty are really energized by teaching OLLI members, because these are people who come to this space because they want to learn. They're choosing to be there. It's learning for the sheer joy of it. There are no tests, there are no grades, just engagement. And so the level of interaction that that the professor's experience is different than what they experience from an undergrad. So often faculty is eager to teach the OLLI program at their university. Sometimes it'll be taught by community leaders on certain topics that are relevant to them. And sometimes it's taught by the members themselves. And that can happen in two ways. Either somebody has retired from something in which they are an expert and they feel still very qualified to teach on a particular topic. And sometimes it's something we call true peer-led learning, where the members pick a topic, find a piece of source material, whether that's a book or a podcast, and they learn together. They are exploring the topic together and benefiting from the unique skills and experiences that they each bring to the table. For example, imagine that we all decide we want to learn about AI. A retired engineer, what I bring to that discussion is going to be different than the retired artist in the room, or the retired physician in the room, or the person who's not retired in the room and dealing with, maybe they're a journalist. And so all of these different perspectives come together to really create this magical learning opportunity, especially at a time in people's lives when they have so much to offer. I mean, the careers of people that come to the table are pretty spectacular. There are no prerequisites. You don't even have to have a college degree to come to an OLLI, and we encourage everyone to be in this space. But we all have life experiences, and it's really neat to see people come with those life experiences and have a really meaningful discussion on a particular topic we all are interested in.
So you started when you left Ohio and you came to the Chicago area as the director at the Northwestern University campus. What is it like now to be the national director for OLLI?
So I'm one of a couple directors at the national level, and it's really a powerful experience. I miss the local OLLI members tremendously, right? That was a really magical part of the job, is learning their life stories. I said I'm really driven by life stories, so I miss that, and I look for opportunities to connect with them as often as I can. But it's very powerful to have impact across the entire nation and see what's happening in different ways at different institutes and encourage that collaboration that we talked about across OLLI programs. We spend a lot of time coaching and counseling directors at different programs, and it's nice that I've sat in their seat and I know what their life is like and the joys that come with this job and sometimes the challenges and how to help them through that. One of the best things we do is connect them with one another. And so that's really been a very satisfying and meaningful transition for me personally. This has been a great role. And especially, as I mentioned, we're just coming off of the national conference in which all of the OLLIs were represented. And there was so much energy and enthusiasm for what we do and the power of the network and the transformation that happens in people's lives when they find OLLI, and just getting people energized about how meaningful our work is.
Now being a part of the national organization, what are some of your goals? Because you said they're all different, but as a group entity, what are some of your top three initiatives for the next year or 5 years?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hey there, Phenomenal listeners. It's Amy Boyle. If you're loving the stories and insights on the Speaking of Phenomenal podcast, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Good Pods. Your 5-star reviews help us reach even more people and keep bringing you great content. Thank you so much for your support and being a part of our phenomenal community. Now back to the show.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would say helping local OLLIs thrive by reaching more adults who benefit from this program, right? The more tools we can provide the local OLLI, the more resources, the more connections with one another to help them be successful in the way that's meaningful to them and their community. That's the core of what we do. So that has to be at the forefront continually. The second thing I think for me personally is helping to provide perspective, because I was a prior director, right? That I see you, I understand what you're going through, and provide really a different level of understanding and perspective because I've sat in that seat. And then kind of a more global thought is helping our directors and their programs navigate the higher ed landscape. that's a changing landscape, and how can we help them navigate that going forward? Those are the three things I'd say I'm most focused on at this point.
Tremendous. What would your mentor be telling you as you go forward to grow the program and bring more engagement together through the different organizations?
It's an interesting question. I have the benefit of having many mentors through my life, which I firmly believe that's a pay it forward kind of thing. If you've had mentors, please be a mentor to someone else, because it's a really important role in someone's career and someone's life. Top of mind right now is actually an OLLI member who was my mentor when I was at the local level, who would just invite me to lunch every few weeks and listen and be able to provide perspective about his peer group that I was serving at the local level. And he did something really interesting for me. I just love this story. One day we were having lunch and he just pushed a piece of paper across the table at me, and it had like 10 names on it. And he said, these are some people that right now they're just attending OLLI programs. And it might just look like they're just taking up a seat. But 5 years ago or 10 years ago, when you weren't yet here, these were the people who were helping the staff run the program. They were providing their time, their talents, their perspectives on how to make this the most powerful program for Northwestern. And you don't have that institutional knowledge, so I just want to share that with you. And then he didn't tell me what I had to do with that. He just said, here are some names you might want to know. And I loved that, because then I can take that and figure out special ways to acknowledge those people who are contributing in different ways now, not at the same pace, because they're aging through the program. They're meaningful people and they have those powerful life stories. And for me, that ignited me, right? These are people who had stories within the OLLI program. So it gave me a chance to acknowledge them. So lesson in all of that is, for me, that mentor was telling me that something that I already knew and loved, but a good reminder, everybody's got a story. Everybody contributed in meaningful ways, even if they're not doing it in the same way now. And how do you continue to show them appreciation and compassion and grace and all the things that are really meaningful in someone's life as they age.
Curiosity is key. We talk about it a lot on this podcast, and on how valuable just being curious in other people, other topics, and what that means to growing community, whether it's supporting other women, supporting other bigger initiatives, taking care of the planet, what have you.
Yeah, I agree 100%. When you're curious and you put yourself in different lanes, you're meeting different people who help you grow. You're not just growing in the topic that you are addressing that's outside your comfort zone. You're growing in the people that you meet in that new lane that you wouldn't have met otherwise.
And if you were to define, because I often ask our guests, what being phenomenal, I think you've said it multiple times in many different answers already, but according to Kari, had to define phenomenal or being phenomenal. What does that look like to you?
I would say it's being curious about other topics, but for me personally, it's about being curious about other people. And that's what helps us build bridges. It's what helps us grow. It's what helps make us better and makes other people better, and builds a community that's going to make us healthier mentally, physically, emotionally.
I love that. Yep. 100% agree. Is there you've mentioned a few different stories about unique situations, like the pediatrician who studies baseball now, or what have you, something that really touched your heart recently, in whether it was at the national conference.
I have dozens. I will do my best to pick one, but again, it's what's so powerful about my role is that almost every day someone will say, OLLI saved my life, or I have this really meaningful experience. But I have an OLLI member who has since become a friend of mine. And when she retired, she was looking back at her first 65 years and saying, well, I've had a successful career. I've had years of caregiving, but I've also lost friends and even lost a spouse. And although she was excited about her next phase of life in retirement, no one gives you a map, right? Tells you, here's how you get through this. Here's what you do next. And even if there was a map, what works for you wouldn't necessarily work for the next person. So although she had this excitement, it wasn't long before she was lonely and unfulfilled and really figuring out what's next. That is until she found OLLI, right? So a friend of hers said, have you checked out OLLI? Again, word of mouth. And all of a sudden she's with other people who are like her, who are trying to figure this out. And there's courses on how to navigate retirement and courses on wisdom and and what wisdom do you bring at this stage of life? And she's taking some of these and finding that this journey can be really special, and that she's not on this journey by herself, that there are other people rocking right beside her. And then there's purpose, then there's meaning. We all know life's filled with all kinds of twists and turns that we don't expect, and all kinds of moments that take our breath away. And she found other people who wanted to go on that journey with her. So I can generically talk about this friend, but it's a pretty familiar story, right? That there are dozens of people in every OLLI program who could tell a very similar story, losing a spouse, feeling alone, retiring, not having direction, and here they are. I have one OLLI member that she is involved in everything. She volunteers at the theater. She is a professional storyteller. She is a singer in a jazz band. She is a retired physician. I mean, she did this, she did that, she did this, but she throws everything she has into OLLI because it's an integral part of her life, as are all these other amazing things. And she's just this beautiful example of how to age and how to live and how to do it beautifully. And she's living healthier, longer, because she's joined things, she's engaged and doing it with the community. I feel like I'm being repetitive, but it's just such a beautiful message that, if we do these things, we're going to have a better life.
No, and I think sometimes, right, it takes that repetition to let that sink in. Sometimes it comes off when you're like, oh, isn't that nice? That worked for them. But you're like, no, this is this person, and this person is different, and so on. And it reminded me a few years ago, I did a photography project that was the precursor to this podcast called 52 Phenomenal Women. So every week there was a new woman featured, and the interest in changing it slightly is they had to write about themselves in short format, like what was phenomenal. And one that sticks out is my dear friend Barbara, and her whole topic was, is there a Joiners Anonymous? To your point, to this woman that you just spoke of, was like, no, this, she was one of 5 sisters. That's just what she grew up with, is like, how do you belong? What do you do? And whatnot. And then as she aged, that was her goal. It's like, nope, I'm going to keep on joining. And it's just so, it's contagious, which I think is definitely one of the things that I'm catching from everything that you're saying here about what it feels like to be a part of OLLI. It sounds like I want to lead into, how can people find out more? How can they get involved? Again, you can take classes over 50, but what does it look like to volunteer any younger than that? Do you have any multi-generational connections there?
I'm glad you asked about multi-generational experiences, because that's a part of the OLLI experience also, because we're located on college and university campuses. The natural opportunities that are created for OLLI members and younger undergraduate students to interact, even just to be on campus together, is pretty special. But many OLLI programs have specific programming designed to create intergenerational experiences. Sometimes OLLI members will be in the classrooms and offering their expertise. Sometimes OLLI members are volunteering at university events, and the undergraduate students are like, hey, who are these people? And they get to know them. We've had undergraduate students say things like, my interaction in this classroom with these OLLI members was the highlight of my college career. Because there's just something so magical about, again, building that bridge and exposing yourself to someone you wouldn't normally expose yourself to, and the wisdom that they bring. So if you are on a college campus and there's an OLLI present, please find a way to engage with those members, because it's a special thing, a magic that happens in that space. If you are age 50 and above and you think this might be of interest to you, I would suggest Googling an OLLI near you. You can also go to osher.net, osher.net, and it'll tell you about the national program and then where you can find all the local programs. And even if you are not in a place to do this for yourself, either because you're younger or you're still working crazy full-time hours, tell your friends, tell your parent or your grandparent, encourage them to be a part of it, because word of mouth isn't just from members themselves. We often have kids on university campuses who are calling their parents and saying, hey, I just ran into this thing that's happening in the classroom next to mine. I think, Mom, you might be interested in this. So tell other people about it who you think could benefit from a community of learners. I guess my last piece of advice is don't wait. If you have an opportunity, you're 50 years old and you're not retiring for another 10 years, but you can get away for a couple of hours every week to learn something new, to put yourself outside your normal comfort zone, to meet other people, to start creating this community. Do it now. Take time for yourself. There are so many unused vacation hours that get lost every single year because we don't take care of ourselves in the way we should. This is a way to take care of yourself. Don't let those unused vacation hours, even if you're not flying off to Jamaica, you can use it to care for yourself in this way. And it would be a beautiful way to spend a couple hours each week.
That's fantastic advice. I'm definitely going to be linking to everything you mentioned. I can't thank you enough for sharing your insight today on this amazing program that is nationwide, and we will definitely be circling back.
Wonderful. I appreciate you inviting me. Amy, it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Speaking of Phenomenal. Be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and even share the podcast, as well as stay tuned for more inspiring conversations. Remember, each and every one of you is capable of extraordinary things. Until next time, take care and remember, you are phenomenal.